Johnson, we may start.
Good morning and welcome everyone to the first California Broadband Council meeting of 2025. I am Jared Johnson, the Deputy State CIO and Chief Deputy Director of the Department of Technology, chairing today's California Broadband Council on behalf of State CIO and Director Leanna Bailey Crimmins, who is responding to the LA fires. Today's meeting is the Council's first meeting of the year. As you know, the Broadband for All program consists of several different coordinated initiatives and efforts aimed at closing the digital divide and fostering digital equity throughout California. Many of these initiatives have transitioned from planning to implementation and have significant accomplishments to share with council members and members of the public. Thank you to Covered California and their staff for supporting today's California Broadband Council meeting. I'd like to start off by just acknowledging the devastation caused by the Los Angeles area wildfires. I think we are all affected in some way by what happened, whether it's friends, family, or colleagues. There's somebody in your life that is probably affected by the fires. We'd like to thank the first responders and emergency personnel who are working very hard to protect those communities from further devastation. And just know that even though we have regular business to attend to today, our priority turns towards the recovery of that area and making that one of the top priorities for the administration. With that, I'd like to start with some business for the committee this morning. Ms. Nguyen, will you start with roll call and review the meeting housekeeping items?
Thank you. Good morning, council members and members of the public. In accordance with Government Code 11123.5, the CBC California Broadband Council will continue to conduct hybrid teleconference meetings and provide a physical meeting location for the public to view and participate in CBC meetings. Council members, please announce your presence as your name is called. Chief Deputy Director Johnson.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Hauk.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Yarbrough.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Modis.
Here.
Thank you. Chief Deputy Director Kenny. Undersecretary Tollefson.
Here.
Ms. McPeak. Deputy Secretary Flores.
Here.
Mr. Chisholm.
Here.
Thank you. Secretary Snyder Ashtari. Mr. Aguayo.
Here.
Thank you. Chief Deputy Director Johnson, we have a quorum. Now, housekeeping items for council members and members of the public. This meeting is being recorded. We will post a recording of this meeting, slides, and transcripts to the Broadband for All portal. Attendees, please note there is time allocated at the end of the meeting for public comments, starting with in-person, via Zoom, phone in, and read-through of public comments sent via email submitted prior to the meeting. Presenter, please cue Ricky to advance your slides. Committee members, please use your raise your hand feature on Zoom or raise your hand in person to notify Chief Deputy Director Jared Johnson to call on you to speak. Just a quick note for folks viewing the meeting from home, please select side-by-side mode speaker view when PowerPoint slides are shared, gallery view when PowerPoint slides are not shared. Closed captioning is available, and you can use *9 if called in by phone. Chief Deputy Director Johnson, we can begin.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. We have a full agenda today, beginning with an executive report by Deputy Director Scott Adams. The Broadband for All updates will include multiple sub-agenda items. You will hear about the progress made in implementing the state's Broadband Action Plan, the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, the CPUC's Last Mile programs, statewide broadband adoption efforts, and update on the State Digital Equity Plan implementation and capacity grant program. Finally, as Ms. Nguyen alluded to earlier, there will be an opportunity for public comments before closing. Would any of the council members like to make brief opening comments before we begin? I'm not hearing any. So we will move forward with Mr. Scott Adams with the executive report.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, members of the Broadband Council and members of the public. Excuse me. I am Scott Adams, the Deputy Director of Broadband and Digital Literacy within the Department of Technology. It's my pleasure to give you a brief update and executive report on our work since the last meeting. Next slide, please. So I really, we wanted to touch on four main issues, and that is, the last meeting in office in October, the Broadband Council gave us permission to commence the annual review and revision process of the California Broadband for All Action Plan. Our staff has begun taking a look at that and reaching out to relevant agencies. And also part of that is looking at, now that we have the state digital equity plan, where many of those have rolled up into that. So we've made good progress on that, and we'll continue to provide updates here to the Broadband Council. The next item we wanted to share is, given that the administration and the state's values and the importance of broadband for all, very pleased to report that our office, the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, PUC, other relevant agencies and entities have conducted extensive partner and stakeholder engagement to continue to ensure both public and partner input on how we develop these programs and implement them. And you'll hear more about that later in the individual reports. The third item wanted to brief you on is we've made some really good progress on the digital equity plan, particularly the state digital equity capacity grant, and are gonna, I think, you'll appreciate the updates later on that we'll go in more detail under the Broadband for All updates section. And then lastly, given that, Broadband for All acknowledges it's really it's a wide umbrella of efforts to close the digital divide and foster digital equity throughout the state. There's been some significant developments on entities within the state of California receiving significant additional funding beyond which was already allocated, which is excellent news. And we wanted to highlight just some of those here during the executive report section. So could you please advance to the next slide? I think the the first thing we'd like to highlight is, as it relates to the state digital equity capacity grant, after last October's meeting, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration made it official and officially awarded the Department of Technology on behalf of the state a $70.2 million grant. It's a state capacity grant to implement the state digital equity plan. And you'll hear more about how we're intending to utilize that later on. If you could advance to the next slide, please. As you know, that collaboration, alignment, cooperation is critical, not just between federal and state agencies, but between state agencies and outside entities. And we're very pleased to report that as a result of the efforts that, on behalf of the ecosystem earlier this year, in the last couple of weeks, the NTIA has recommended that 13 California serving entities be awarded a total of almost $130 million. And so we've added the names of the recommended awardees here, and wanted to note that congratulations to those entities for putting together great applications that align with the state digital equity plan, and would specifically like to call out here the California Emerging Technology Fund was one of the 13 awardees and a member of the Broadband Council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adams. That is on behalf of 51 other partners. So it is a huge effort with CBOs who are new to. I actually am trying.
There you go.
Thank you. Oh, when it stays on, how lovely. I am technologically challenged, although I keep trying to promote technology and I can't even use a microphone. So thank you. But what I want to really say is what's so exciting is that there are new community-based organizations in this partnership who have great relationships with the community. They've been part of the census effort. They were part of mobilization around vaccination. They've never been in the digital equity space. And so we're looking forward to having this cross-fertilization between very experienced CBOs, very new CBOs that will hopefully be capacity for all of you, and who many of whom I know are going to turn around and apply to the California Public Utilities Commission in the future. So it's just a testament to a really broad coalition with the support of most of the regional broadband consortia as well.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Yeah, and just real quick, had a couple more slides to complete my report here, because definitely the the recommendations on the awards for the competitive grants are important. Could we go to the next slide, please? What we'd also like to report out is through the NTIA's Triple Broadband Connectivity Program, they've released over the last several weeks the second round of awardees of grants to that program, and we're really excited that 6 California tribes were awarded, over $12 million there, and we've included the tribe here. Wanted to definitely extend our congratulations to them. Every dollar counts, and when you start to add this up to what the state is investing, it's a significant amount of funds. Can we go to the next slide, please? And I think to kind of round out this acknowledgement that we're all collectively seeking to bring back as much funds as possible to the state of California, we did want to acknowledge that recently a program that entities in California haven't been particularly successful in bringing funds back from the USDA's Rural Development Reconnect program. Sierra Telephone Company recently received, an almost $12 million grant from that program. So really pleased to report in my executive report that it's not just the work we do, that the coordination and alignment we do with others that leads to really great successes, and thought we wanted to let you folks know about it. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Do any of the council members have any question about Mr. Adams' update? I'm not hearing any comments, nothing on the Zoom meeting. So we will proceed with our Broadband for All work plan updates. First, I would like to welcome Deputy Director Scott Adams to provide highlights on the implementation of the state's Broadband for All work plan.
Thank you very much, Chair Johnson. Good to be back. I think this is going to be really quick. If we could go to the next slide. As I mentioned in the executive report out, per the direction that was given to us from the Broadband Council at the last meeting, staff has begun the annual review of the action plan and revision process. As we've reported out in the past, 18 of those 24 action items in the action plan are completed. Those that aren't are kind of long-term, and we continue to monitor those. The actions that are completed actually still live on, though, and so annually we refresh those, we track their progress. The calling out of the funds that have come into California directly relates to the action plan, and what we're going to continue to report out here throughout the year is how we can modify how we track progress on Broadband for All, from the way it's currently visualized and tracked on the Broadband for All portal, to really going beyond and looking at the strategies and key activities and measurable objectives that are outlined in the state digital equity plan. As Chair Johnson mentioned, there's been a slight focus in how we've organized how we're going to report out the work here at the Broadband Council. You may recall over the last year and a half or so, our agendas have always had the Broadband for All program updates under one bucket. And then we kind of segregated, the Department of Technology and the Public Utilities Commission's work on the NTIA's IIJ broadband programs. But now, as the chair mentioned, that both on digital equity plan and on BEAD, we've shifted from planning to implementation. And to underscore how critical those programs are to the work of Broadband for All, we're folding those up into the Broadband for All efforts. And that's a subtle but important distinction that we're going to make as we move forward throughout the rest of the year. Next slide, please. And again, just to underscore, the comment that Chair Johnson made in his remarks, Broadband for All is the state and the administration's overarching program to close the digital divide. And it's not just one effort. It's a combination of efforts that are both, interdependent and complementary, that are coordinated at the state level between agencies and between state agencies and local and regional partners. And that work began in 2010 with the establishment of this body. It was further expanded by the governor's broadband executive order in 2020, the development of the action plan, the historic passage of Senate Bill 156, and the really game-changing programs that were structured and funded there through the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, the Last Mile programs at the CPUC, and then leveraging those IIJ programs. So that is really kind of the evolution of the programs, and more than likely won't stop there, but wanted to give it a snapshot of how Broadband for All has grown and what it encompasses. And Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. It's reassuring to see all of the progress made with these many programs and how with the capacity grant and the NTIA competitive grants and the other programs, they're all starting to be able to make those differences that we envisioned for those most in need. Do any council members have questions for Mr. Adams' update? Ms. McPeak?
I just want to comment that the Broadband for All executive order, the action plan, is such an asset for California. It's overarching. It preceded action at the federal level. It will endure past the whatever happens currently in Washington and at the federal level. And it is really important to see the discipline that the department, Mr. Adams, brings every meeting to this forum to say, what progress are we making? So that's the North Star. And that is what drives, I think, policy for an action for California.
Thank you. Any other members have comments or questions? I'm seeing none. So next we will move to Mr. Mark Monroe, Deputy Director of the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, to speak to the significant progress his team and the broader partners have made implementing his historic project.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Mark Monroe, Deputy Director for the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative at CDT. Happy to be able to have the opportunity to provide another update on this project. Let's go to if we can jump to the first slide here. Many will, I hope, be tracking the fact that CDT anticipates partnerships to provide for more than 7,300 miles of the 8,000-mile MMBI network. This includes the latest two government-to-government joint build partnerships we signed in the recent weeks here. The first is with the Karuk tribe for 2 segments in Humboldt County, totaling 46 miles, one along State Route 101 and one along State Route 96. And we're going to present a video on this partnership in a few minutes. The second is with the Gateway Cities Council of Governments. The 75-mile joint build project provides middle mile infrastructure as part of a broader FFA grant-funded project, reaching a number of historically unserved areas in LA County. If we can jump to the next slide. As we all know, providing a connectivity requires both middle mile and last mile, and CDT has worked closely with the CPUC as FFA grant awards are being made to ensure that MMBI reaches the FFA grant locations that plan to use MMBI. While FFA grant applicants have been working directly with CPUC up until the award of the FFA grant, it's important that CDT also work directly with each of the awardees going forward to make sure that both the last mile projects and the middle mile project are developed in a way that will facilitate the easiest connection to the MMBI network. And towards the end of the year, CPUC and CDT formalized and implemented a process for both entities to meet with each FFA grant awardee together to generate the necessary information and conversation about how best to connect to the MMBI network. You can jump to the next slide. Here you can see a snapshot of where construction on the MMBI project stood as of the end of December. While a few years ago, most of the construction was originally anticipated to start in 2025, CDT was able to start construction on more than 3,000 miles of the network ahead of schedule by the end of 2024. So very excited about that. This early work is expected to help CDT bring some segments online by early 2026, well ahead of the December 2026 deadline. If we can jump to the next slide. As a reminder, Caltrans is a key partner in the MMBI project. First, it is constructing almost 780 miles of the network. And here we can see that Caltrans reports 94% of its pre-construction work on these miles being complete, with 91 miles of construction having begun as of the end of December. Caltrans is also installing the network's repeater huts and now reports having 75% of the pre-construction work on this finished as well, with the installation of some hubs scheduled to start in the second quarter of this calendar year. These hubs are the vital last component for each segment, housing electronics that will allow the network to become operational and serve those last mile communities. And lastly, Caltrans is also responsible for providing encroachment permits to the RFI Squared partners for the almost 4,000 miles of the network that these partners are installing along Caltrans right away. These permits will be secured from Caltrans before construction can begin on Caltrans right of way. So these will be key in getting the network completed by the December 2026 deadline. You can jump to the next slide. We've put together a new visual here showing our network development effort along the top with installation of hubs and electronics beginning this year, in addition to continued fiber construction to complete the project on schedule by the end of 2026 as planned. Below, you can see our current marketing effort as well as we reach out to FFA grant awardees as well as other potential customers. We can also see here an early effort with Golden State Net to identify customers prior to the operations TPA coming on board. And as most will be tracking, we are currently in the procurement process for the operator, which we plan to complete later this year. You can jump to the next slide. One thing we wanted to briefly highlight is the benefit that the MMBI partnerships will bring, in particular to the tribal communities. As noted previously, we currently have joint build partnerships with the Hupa, Yurok, and Karuk tribes, and we are working to finalize roughly a half a dozen other similar partnerships. These projects will provide construction jobs and fiber maintenance jobs in these communities. And these partnerships also help develop professional expertise for these fiber installation and maintenance and network operations within the tribal populations, providing ongoing employment and self-sufficiency. The tribes the tribes who will be operating these their own networks will also generate revenues, and more broadly, as well as we're all tracking, the access to broadband opens up education and employment opportunities within the tribal communities. And some of our tribal partners have also noted that in addition to providing access to healthcare, the connections provided by broadband will prove valuable in addressing the isolation that is sometimes reported in these rural areas. If we can jump to the next slide. As noted previously, CDT recently finalized the joint build partnership with the Karuk tribe. In December, we had the opportunity to travel up to Happy Camp in Siskiyou County to memorialize this agreement with a visit to the Karuk Tribal Cultural Center. We're welcomed to a meeting of the Karuk tribal leadership for a ceremonial signing. Before I finish the MMBI update today, we wanted to share a brief video about this partnership.
For thousands of years along the Klamath River, the Karuk tribe have lived, sustaining culture, ceremony, and community. Today, they're forging a new path to ensure future generations remain connected to each other and to the world. The Karuk tribe is partnering with the California Department of Technology on the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, a program building over 8,000 miles of open access network to close the digital divide.
Broadband is so vital, so important to these communities, the economic development, the healthcare needs, the education needs.
This joint build project will span dozens of miles, linking remote stretches of Northern California. It's a crucial backbone that will enable service providers to extend high-speed internet to the Karuk, Hoopa Valley, and Yurok tribes, as well as other rural areas.
So I have 10 children, and I have young ones. I have older ones that are in their late 20s. COVID came. Nobody had internet to teach our children. They were passing out these little routers to people or hotspots or whatever. People need to have a connection to outside, to talk to their family, to shop. You know, those are just little things, but those are really important things. When you don't have a car and you can't go anywhere.
Before I became chairman of the Karuk tribe, I was a teacher and an educator. And I always told the students to pursue your education, to follow your dreams, and the internet offers you the opportunity to still pursue your education. And that really opens the door for our students to do both.
That's what kids are growing up in now, it's an adaptive culture that has to learn how to balance both sides of their world. The modern side with internet and education, how do we balance that with our cultural teachings and our ceremonies?
You know, this has been their home for 10,000 years. And as one elder told me, they want to live here another 10,000.
There's fear when it comes to progress, because as tribal people, we've learned through past experience that change can be a really bad thing.
My goal and my dream would be to see that people that live here could work from home in this beautiful area that we live in, and not be forced to make life decisions that take them out or that make them suffer.
Reaching all 58 counties, the Middle Mile Broadband Network will transform how Californians live, learn, work, and connect for generations to come.
Yeah, thank you. Really rewarding to meet the people in the communities that will share in the benefits of Broadband for All and the work of this council. Lastly, I wanted to, if we can jump to the last slide, I wanted to show briefly again the fact sheet that the CDT posts every month on its website. You'll see on the bottom corner, you can find the QR code to get these monthly progress updates. And again, these are posted on our website. That ends my update on the MMBI project. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Do any council members have questions for Mr. Monroe's update? Commissioner Houck?
It's just a comment. I just want to
really recognize all of the work that CDT has done. They've been just an amazing partner with the PUC on moving these projects forward. And you can see the early work is going to make a huge difference in getting those last mile projects connected. So just wanted to thank CDT for all of their effort. And I know I wasn't able to go up to the meeting with the Karuk, but I did attend one with Hoopa with CDT, and just really seeing how they're engaging with the communities is really inspiring. So thank you.
Thank you. Was there a comment here that I missed? Sorry. No. Ms. McPeak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was great to see Eric Cartwright again. We recognized him as a champion of digital equity in about 2016. And at the time, we also assisted the Karuk in being able to get their grant after 3 years from USDA and get reimbursed so that they could actually connect then to a grant from the California Advanced Services Fund. So that early work, I think, laid the foundation, as I'm understanding, for then you being able to partner with the Middle Mile initiative. My question is, so with this Middle Mile partnership with the tribes, which of the ISPs should be paying attention and help connect to that Middle Mile to expand service in the Redwood Coast?
Well, what I'll say is that for the partnerships that I've talked about so far with the Hoopa and the Yurok and the Karuk tribes, I'm not. All of them, I believe, are establishing that they're serving as their own ISPs. Are actually establishing their own last mile, establishing themselves as last mile providers. And that's one of the things we're excited about, is to be able to see the level of expertise that they're developing there. When we went up and met with the Hoopa tribal leadership a few years ago. They're really building out, they're really developing within the tribal population this expertise. They go out and they fix their own, they can install things, they fix their own equipment. I mean, so I think that's what's exciting. What is part of what's exciting about these partnerships is that largely the ones we've been working with so far are actually creating their own last mile, or becoming their own last mile providers on the tribal communities.
One last comment, if I might. I know Acorn operates for the Hoopa. So both Karuk and Yurok are doing similar ISPs. Is that true?
Yeah. So for the Yurok, they have Ytel is managing their project, and I would have to get back to you on a little more specifics of what Karuk is doing. I know the different tribes, there's 109, I think, federally registered tribes. There's a wide variation, as you're aware, between, where some of them are. And these are definitely some of the tribes that are, they've been, as you noted, they've been working on this for a long time. This is not something that popped up with MMBI. But yeah, I'd have to get back to you on some more of the specifics of of how the Karuk are planning to proceed with that.
So then what is their charge monthly? What are they able to do as an affordable internet service rate for their customers?
Yeah, so CDT is still finalizing a rate structure for that. It's broadly expected to be affordable from the standpoint that compared to a lot of other to other providers, which have to make back their capital costs, the CDT in the state does not need to. So we broadly expect it to be affordable. Our team is working on a rate structure for that, and I'll say ultimately that more broadly we'll work with our operator when they come on board to put that out to put out a broader rate structure.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. And just a reminder, for the MMBI, we do have the Middle Mile Advisory Committee, which meets quarterly as well and provides a lot of in-depth information about those initiatives. Next, we'll move on to the Last Mile Program updates from Commissioner Darcy Houck from the California Public Utilities Commission. CPUC has many last mile grant programs that support last mile connectivity to homes and broadband adoption. She will share the significant progress CPUC has made over the last year. Commissioner Houck.
Thank you. And I will note that we also have Deputy Director of Broadband, Maria Ellis, online virtually as well. And she's going to help me with any questions I can't answer. So again, thank you. I'm really excited to provide some of the updates that we're going to provide today. If you can move to the next slide, please. So this table is a snapshot of the suite of last mile programs at the PUC that are part of the state's multi-year infrastructure investment, including the multi-year last mile SB 156 programs. This includes the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, or BEAD program, which is part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021 and is administered by the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or NTIA. Of the $42.45 billion in program funds, NTIA allocated $1.86 billion to California to help deploy reliable last mile broadband service to all unserved locations in California. The Commission has adopted the program Initial Proposals Volume 1 and 2, which respectively establish the rules for the challenge process to determine whether a location in California is served, unserved, or underserved for purposes of BEAD funding, and 2, the selection criteria and subgrantee requirements for BEAD applicants. And I'm going to give a more in-depth update of where we are with the program later in the presentation, but I do want to note that the grant solicitation window has not opened yet, and that our challenge map was recently approved on January 17th by NTIA, so we will be posting that soon. Our California Advanced Services Fund, or CASF, continues to support digital equity by funding broadband deployment in low-income, tribal, and unserved areas through infrastructure, adoption, public housing, and technical assistance programs. The CASF has a total of 6 public purpose programs administered by the CPUC that are funded by surcharges, and I'll be providing updates in a later slide. The Loan Loss Reserve Program, now a $50 million program, aims to enable tribes, local governments, and nonprofits to finance broadband deployment with more favorable terms when they borrow money from bond markets and financial institutions. So the CPUC is also administering our Last Mile Federal Funding Account, or FFA, and I'm very excited to provide updates on that program today. This program is roughly $2 billion program that aims to deploy wireline last mile infrastructure in every county of the state. And I'm going to talk about these updates on the awards in more detail in the coming slides, but I would like to highlight that the CPUC has surpassed awarding $1 billion for the program. And this is a significant achievement, and it's really a testament to the hard work of our staff. They have put a lot of time and energy into working with the applicants, with the public, and we are really proud of the work that's been done here in surpassing that $1 billion mark. The multi-year funding represents comprehensive on-time investment implementing the vision of broadband for all. So today's presentation, I'm going to focus on FFA, Loan Loss Reserve, CAS, and BEAD. And if you could go to the next slide, please. So the goal of the federal funding account is to provide direct connection to unserved locations and end users as part of a multi-part strategy for broadband investment in California. The first grant window closed on September 29th, 2023, and we received 484 applications requesting over $4.6 billion in funding. A total of 63 distinct entities filed FFA applications. We have some really great updates to provide here as we draw to a close on the first funding window for the program. In December, the federal funding account hit that milestone of the $1 billion. So I'm going to repeat that again. We hit over the $1 billion to grantees for high-speed broadband infrastructure. This slide shown provides a breakdown of the awards that were issued. Additionally, so all of the areas in dark green are awards that have been issued. The areas in light green are pending awards that we have resolutions out for. In the white areas, we don't have proposals out for, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But additionally, so last week, January 16th, the Commission issued awards in 2 more counties, which means to date the Commission has awarded 100 projects in 49 counties, and of these 100 FFA projects, 42 are public entities excluding tribes, there are 8 tribal awards. There are 50 traditional internet service provider awards. And of the total projects awarded to date, 63 projects will serve majority disadvantaged and low-income areas. The projects that have been awarded FFA grants and which are currently being recommended for FFA grants will deploy approximately 6,000 miles of fiber and benefit nearly 2 million Californians. So during our next voting meeting on January 30th, we have proposed awards for 4 more counties, which are the light green awards on areas on the map. Next slide, please. So in this slide, I'm going to provide some highlights from the projects that have received FFA grants. These projects showcase how the grants have helped to close the digital divide, especially in environmental and social justice communities throughout California that have seen historic disinvestment. The PUC has so far awarded, again, 63 projects that will serve majority disadvantaged and low-income areas. Some of these awarded projects also connect to the Middle Mile broadband network, such as the Karuk Tribe Fiber to the Home project, which was awarded $27.4 million to build broadband infrastructure in Humboldt County. This project will offer both an affordable broadband plan for low-income customers as well as a low-cost broadband plan available to all customers. And the grantee will also participate in the California Lifeline program. The Terabella project in Tulare County, which was awarded $10 million to benefit local businesses, farmers, and suppliers in the Central Valley. This project will also offer a low-cost broadband plan available to all customers and participate in the California Lifeline program. And the City of Huntington Park project in Los Angeles County was awarded $25.4 million and will benefit an estimated 61,000 people. And this project will offer a low-cost broadband plan available to all customers, participate in the California Lifeline program, and offer a low-income program. In total, a variety of grantees have been awarded FFA funds, including tribes, county, and city organizations such as the Santa Ynez Band of Chumash Indians in Santa Barbara County, Nevada County Fiber, and the city of Fort Bragg. I'd also like to point out how the Middle Mile Broadband Network has been a crucial component to these projects, catalyzing and enabling these projects to serve disadvantaged, low-income, and high-cost communities. These projects wouldn't have been possible without the Middle Mile Network. As of January 16th, we see 53 out of the 100 projects that have so far received FFA grants plan to connect to the Middle Mile. Over $709 million, or 71% of the funding from the FFA awards, are for projects connecting to the Middle Mile. And of the types of entities connecting to the Middle Mile, we've got 18 public entities, 7 tribes, 1 incumbent provider, and 6 new entrants into the market that'll be connecting to the Middle Mile. So Middle Mile Broadband Network has really been transformational in enabling the FFA applications and awards that would not have been possible otherwise. So I just really want to underscore that. These are really historic investments that are going to change people's access to the internet for generations. One example is without the MMBI, we likely would not have seen projects from many of the tribal communities and public providers, particularly in Alameda, Imperial, Modoc, and San Francisco counties. Going forward, we anticipate that the Middle Mile broadband network will benefit other programs such as the NTIA Tribal Connectivity Program, the CASF Infrastructure Program, and the BEAD program by making these projects possible that utilize other programs, and it'll be more cost effective and cost efficient to have access to this critical resource. Next slide, please. So I'd like to take some time to share that different FFA, some information about some of the different FFA grantees and what they're saying about their awards, and share some pictures from events and meetings with the grantees. So this is a quote from the Siskiyou Telephone Company, a provider in Siskiyou County, expressing how the FFA award will benefit the different communities in the rural regions and how the project will benefit from the Middle Mile Broadband Network. So it's a quote from Russell Elliott, the Chief Executive Officer at Siskiyou Telephone Company. who stated Western Siskiyou County is one of the most remote regions in California, encompassing agricultural, tribal, and multi-generational populations. This grant will ensure many California residents in our rural region will have access to one of today's most critical infrastructure, fiber broadband. Finally, the grant will also benefit from the California State Middle Mile Broadband Initiative project, as the MMBI will significantly reduce the last mile cost for the project by building through this project area. On the right are members from the FFA team and members from Siskiyou County, folks that worked hard to get these awards issued and to help unserved communities. So next slide, please. Here is another photo, and on the left is it's from the Xfinity Comcast groundbreaking of the FFA Tulare Agriculture County project. The project will provide up to 1 gigabit per second symmetrical service and will benefit disadvantaged communities. 100% of the universal locations are from disadvantaged communities. And the photo on the right includes CPUC staff with city representatives from Fort Bragg, Ukiah, and Vallejo during commission voting meetings held in Sacramento and in Bakersfield. So improved middle mile broadband infrastructure, again, paves the way for affordable high-speed internet in homes, schools, hospitals, and small businesses. The federal funding account has empowered California to tackle the digital divide by investing in critical middle mile broadband infrastructure, which is a cornerstone for our last mile connectivity. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to discuss our loan loss reserve program. This program's goal is to support public entities, tribes, and affiliated nonprofits to finance and issue broadband infrastructure bonds. Unlike other broadband programs at the CPUC, this program is not a grant program. Instead, this is an innovative tool that can complement other programs to sorry, I'm losing my voice today. Leverage debt instruments to help reach our state's broadband goals. And we know the cost of deploying broadband infrastructure is not small. So we're really pleased to have another program that can aid tribes and local governments to serve their communities through this opportunity. Resolution T17841 was adopted on September 12th, 2024, and that implemented the 2024-25 budget agreement that specified $50 million for the program in Senate Bill 1091. On November 7th, 2024, the PUC adopted another resolution, T17858, that awarded $50 million in broadband loan loss reserve funding to the Golden State Connect Authority. In awarding these funds, the PUC looks forward to the program enabling the multiplier effect of bond-funded network buildouts and demonstrating the impact and value a larger pool of funds will play in expanding broadband for California. Next slide, please. So the California Advanced Service Fund continues to serve as an important tool in supporting digital equity and the goals of broadband for all. The CASF includes a number of accounts and programs, and I'm going to speak to the CASF and its programs in the following 3 slides. This slide summarizes projects and awards in 2024 and over the life of the CASF program by sub-account. Since 2008, the CASF has helped close the digital divide in California by providing grants to build and expand broadband facilities. Grants were awarded for almost 1,300 projects, totaling approximately $460 million. Next slide, please. This slide provides a snapshot on the broadband adoption account, which provides grants to support digital equity and inclusion. The budget this fiscal year for the broadband adoption account is a little above $36 million, and to date, the CPUC has approved 432 digital literacy grants that have benefited over 100,000 participants and funded 74 broadband access projects serving over 310,000 participants. The most recent application window for January 2025, we saw 80 applications requesting over $13.4 million in funds for more than 34 counties, and the information was summarized on that, the prior. Go to the next slide. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Okay, we will find that maybe. Mine is not matching, but okay. The public housing account. This slide provides a snapshot on the public housing account. The program was revised and updated in 2024, and we greatly expanded what applicants can use funding for to ensure that we're able to provide broadband to public housing and low-income housing areas. The budget this fiscal year for the broadband public housing account is approximately $30 million, and the public housing account has connected more than 21,000 housing units with free internet access. The January 2025 application window saw 32 applications for the public housing account, funding comprising 22 infrastructure projects and 10 extension projects. Next slide, please. So I'll now transition to discussing the BEAD program. So on September 26th, 2024, the Commission voted to approve the BEAD Initial Proposal Volume 2, which focuses on the subgrantee selection process. October 3rd of last year, NTIA approved the state's Initial Proposal Volume 2, which allocated the $1.86 billion in funding to the state to use for implementation of the program. In November of 2024, the PUC submitted our results of the state's challenge process to NTIA for review, validation, and approval. And on January 17th, last Friday, NTIA approved the data that we provided them for the challenge process. So upcoming milestones include conducting the subgrantee selection process with a Q1 to Q3 2025 start and end timeframe. Following the subgrantee selection process, we're targeting a Q4 2025 timeframe for proposed grant awards. However, all of this is really subject to NTIA review and approval. And I'll go over this in more detail in the next slide. So please go to the next slide. The timeline you see in this slide represents the 5 work streams that the PUC is using to implement the federal BEAD program in California. Before going into the details here, it's worth noting that the state must deliver, as of right now, a proposal by October 2nd of 2025. This final proposal will outline proposed subgrants and the process used to arrive at the selections. And this is an NTIA deadline, and as you can see, it's a fairly short time frame to do a lot of work. This program is highly prescriptive, and the main goal of the program is to reach 100% of BEAD eligible locations with either one priority broadband project, such as end-to-end fiber, 2 reliable broadband projects like cable, DSL, and terrestrial licensed fixed wireless, or 3 alternative technologies, which include low Earth orbit satellites. In regards to the BEAD planning documents, the first work stream process you see in the table, the requirements of the BEAD, they show the requirements of the BEAD program, the 5-year action plan, and the Volume 1 outline the overall project and rules for the challenge process, which again has been approved. And the Volume 2 outlines the subgrantee selection process, which has also been approved. In 2024, the final proposal will be in October 2025, the final proposal will be submitted with results of the subgrantee selection process. In regards to the challenge process, the PUC did follow NTIA's model challenge process, and again, we submitted our results, which were approved last week. Our next milestone is moving forward with the subgrantee selection process, which is outlined in Volume 2. We started conducting outreach and education on the solicitation process in December with a 10-part webinar series meant to help would-be applicants understand the requirements of the program, especially given the short timeframes that we're looking at, and how to prepare their applications. We've already completed 4 of the webinars. All of these are recorded and can be found on the PUC's website. And we anticipate opening the BEAD application process towards the end of Q1 in March. We will communicate broadly across all channels on the schedule and deadlines. Deployment is expected to begin in late 2025, but again, timing's dependent on NTIA and Commission approvals on the final proposal. Since 2023, the CPUC has conducted public outreach to gather input from potential BEAD participants, beneficiaries, and other stakeholders. This outreach included statewide public engagement in collaboration with our partner at the California Department of Technology. And the CPUC continues to conduct outreach through webinars, office hours, and informational sessions leading up to the challenge process. We know there's going to be a lot of questions, and we want to make sure everyone knows that our staff are available and ready to respond. Next slide, please. So in conducting outreach for the subgrantee selection process, the PUC is committed to ensuring stakeholders are well-informed and prepared to participate in the application process. To support this goal, the PUC is housing a series of webinars and office hours. These sessions are open to anyone who wants to attend. Each section of the webinar will focus on a critical aspect of the program, as seen on this slide that shows the various webinar topics. Office hours will take place in 2025, starting January 9th. These sessions are an open forum for stakeholders to ask specific questions, seek clarification, and gain personalized guidance on the BEAD application process. So in 2025, from 1 to 2 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can block your calendars if you have questions or want to participate in this process for BEAD outreach opportunities. And again, that will include webinars and office hours. Stakeholders are encouraged to attend these sessions to fully understand the requirements and opportunities provided through the BEAD program. And the events are designed to promote transparency, collaboration, and success for all potential grantees. And that concludes my presentation. I know that was a lot of information in a very short period of time. So I will turn it back to you, Deputy Director Johnson.
Thank you, Commissioner Houck. Do any council members have questions about Commissioner Houck's update?
Of course I do.
Ms. McTeague?
Mr. Chairman, it's so much information. I apologize to everybody for asking questions, but I was struck in all of well, first of all, it is a lot that is being done, and I appreciate the outreach, the webinars, the focus that Commissioner Houck in particular brings to trying to get deployment to the publicly subsidized housing complexes and farm worker housing. So thank you. I wanted to ask about in at least one of the deployment awards, FFA, there is participation in Lifeline. So two questions around that. One is that being encouraged by the PUC across the board? And two, is the Lifeline participation in at least the one award that you referenced, a bundled service of telephony and data?
So I can say that, yes, we are encouraging and the Lifeline participation, and I can let Maria, if she wants to provide more information on that and the packaging. But I think because the program is focused on broadband, I am not sure that we can go beyond that, but I'll let Maria talk about the specifics. But Lifeline is something that we see as a priority for these projects.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for the question, Council Person McPeak. I want to make sure that I understand which project you're indicating. There were 3 projects in that general presentation that were specifically referenced. Overall, generally speaking, of course, encouraging while Lifeline participation in Lifeline is not a requirement for the program, it is highly encouraged. And certainly we see a lot of value in the bundled approach of being able to bundle those services. But if you tell me the specific project, I can certainly look that up and follow up.
Okay, I'm looking back. It was a ton of a presentation. I actually thought it was with the Karuk.
Yeah, there was actually the Karuk tribe, the Terabella project and City of Huntington, I think are all including Lifeline.
Although it's not listed on the slide specifically, but I think you may have mentioned that. And I know you're smiling at me, Deputy Director Ellis, that I'm asking about Lifeline, but I'm, trying to really understand how it's working and how we can encourage it, which is, I want to congratulate you for getting that commitment. I'm just wondering, can we get more of the project implementers and operators to embrace the Lifeline program?
We certainly welcome that feedback, and certainly we will continue to encourage applicants. Again, not having it been a requirement, we are really actually very heartened by the fact that many applicants have chosen preemptively to choose to offer that important benefit.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hauk and Deputy Director Ellis. Next, we are going to move to the Broadband for All update on broadband adoption. This will be coming from Ms. Sunny McPeak from the California Emerging Technology Fund, who will share a few highlights from the CETF Broadband Adoption Survey. Ms. McPeak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This report is actually pursuant to action item number 16 in the Broadband for All action plan. It was also part of the original executive order for all of us to work together on getting everyone online. Going to the next slide, if we can, let me just say for the moment, what I'm going to report to you, top line is, we're making progress together, but it is becoming increasingly more difficult to reach the poorest households, the most digitally disadvantaged. And so the data I'm sharing is just evidence to that and underscores how, in trying to complete the obligations in the Broadband for All action plan, that we need to be even more focused, intense, and figuring out as many strategies as possible. So on this slide, what you see is a follow-up that we did with all of the low-income, actually covered households in the 2023 statewide survey that was conducted in partnership with the California Department of Technology, University of Southern California, and the California Emerging Technology Fund, to provide the data to inform the digital equity plan and the BEAD plan. And we've reported all that before. We went back to the 544 households in that sample that was more than 3,200 that were covered households. And on the left-hand side, you see the responses there from the 544 households as to who was connected, who was unconnected, and who was underconnected. Underconnected are those who have a smartphone only. The really good news is, over time, by the way, we have significantly increased the number of low-income households that are connected and decreased the number who are underconnected. One of the primary reasons that happened, by the way, was school-based strategies that actually allowed devices to go home, so that there was not just a smartphone in the house, there was also a device that had a connection to the internet through a variety of ways. On the right-hand side, and we usually have our surveying firm that did the first 2023, they did the 2024 to all 544 who agreed to be called, for whom we paid a $25 gift certificate to participate. Our goal is to screen into an ongoing panel of low-income households that were randomly selected to begin with. And remember, that random selection, what is called a random digit dialing, that also had texting and online versions, a blended approach, the top of the line technology or methodology. It took 1,000 contacts and calls to get one household to participate. It's a huge lift. It's the most expensive methodology in the state, it exists, period, and only California did that for a digital equity planning process. All others, just you rely on a panel, and that panel tends to be about 10% out of variation with an actual random sample. And we verified that through many, many analyses of other programs. So we went back, and the performance standard is to call 16 times before we give up on a household, and we got 201 to participate. And that is not because the households didn't want to participate. They also want $25. It is an indication of they changed telephone numbers. They had a prepaid number to begin with. They have had to move. They can no longer pay the bills. I just want to underscore what we are talking about in terms of economic fragility for the poorest households at the 150% of federal poverty level. But the good news is, as you can see just by the pie charts, that we have gotten more connected, still decreased the underconnected, and we still have a big challenge of the unconnected. And it's that unconnected that we really together have to focus on. And might I also add my personal thanks to the Department of Technology for doing all the formatting here that helps us present this in a coherent way. Next slide, please. So what I also want to show, these bar charts are asking, again, households. So if you applied for ACP, why or why not, basically. And the good news is we've, by the way, also verified is the 201 subset of the 544 representative of the 544 in terms of socioeconomic demographics? And the answer is yes. With respect to what languages are spoken at home, what are language barriers, what is the income level and the spectrum or the distribution of ethnic background. And what you find here is that almost 52%, 51.9% said they didn't know how to apply, which actually is very consistent with the 64% in 2023 who said they didn't even know about ACP. I want to underscore for a moment, that's not because people didn't make the effort. There was a lot of effort that we all made in outreach. It's that the people that are still today are still not connected, do not know about the programs. They're just trying to keep daily lives together. And it means you have to be very persistent, continue outreach over and over again. And then I do want to acknowledge that the majority who could recall if they had enrolled in ACP said that their ISP did give them enough information about switching or that their program was coming to an end. The vast majority couldn't remember if they were enrolled in ACP, who were enrolled in ACP. I mean, it's just literally, okay, I'm online. I don't know what the program's called. I've somehow got service. That is just the reality that we're trying to really speak to. And then even more discouraging at this point, or sobering, let me put it in that term, sobering, is that almost 70%, 69.3% said they've never heard of an affordable internet service offer. Okay, so all of them are connected, who are connected through an existing internet service provider, all of whom who have affordable offers and are still not making the connection or providing the information, or if they're providing the information, it's not getting through to the household that they qualify for a reduced rate. That's the challenge we have. So going to the next slide, I want to just share that here you can see, this is exactly what I said, those who had been enrolled in ACP, and then those who have switched to and know about an affordable offer. The data is very helpful to give you insights as to, again, the same challenge of being aware and were they informed of a lower cost offer. The majority can't remember if they were informed about a lower cost offer. This is, again, because they are so focused on just trying to survive each day, and that means even more of a lift. The last slide, if we can go to it, is actually a summary of the final results, and that is we still find today that what works is what we call direct notification. And that is a credible source, different than a trusted messenger. A credible source is generally a public agency. It is also, by the way, the utility companies, the energy companies, what we call investor-owned utilities, also the muni utilities, because nobody wants their lights turned off. So they will actually open a letter that is from their energy or gas company that will say, hey, you're on our CARE program. Do you know you also qualify for an affordable offer? That gets a great response. But the highest response comes when our Department of Healthcare Services and our Department of Social Services mails out to everybody who is on Medi-Cal and CalFresh, hey, you're eligible for also an affordable internet service. Those two departments are on their third round of direct notification. The first two were ACP. They're now notifying everybody, okay, it's an affordable offer. But throughout California, in all of the service areas, the combination of who is your telephone company, who is your cable company, both of whom will offer an internet product, it's at least 160 different combinations, which need to be offered in about 5 different languages to begin with, and then tailored to the community who might have other languages. And that is too complicated to send all of these households to. So they're all now being directed to come to one call center where 70, 80, 90 CBO employees are online every day handling those calls in language, in culture. What we used to find is that with ACP, 80% of the folks could enroll themselves because there was one place to go to, which was we gave them a button, they could go directly to the FCC, and if they were on a program-linked eligibility, Medicaid or SNAP, which is our Medi-Cal and CalFresh in California, they would be able to enroll themselves in 5 minutes because they had the documentation of being eligible through that program. And we would only have to help 20%. Today, we have to help 100% because there's no central number where you can enroll yourself and sort out which call center, which ISP you're supposed to talk to. So everybody we help then ends up on a 3-way call. A CBO with the customer, with the ISP, so they don't get upsold. By the way, in that previous slide, about 10% said they were sold a higher cost product. So just keep in mind, the good news, it's only 10%, but there is upselling that still goes on and that they weren't told about the truly affordable offer. They were supposed to get ACP for free and know that they could do that because the product was being offered at $30 that they got, the ISP would get the reimbursement on. So last conclusion is these numbers really are, again, I call them sobering. We used to be able to reach out to 100 households and one call would come in. We would help that. There was 100 to 1. Today, we can get a response doing about 115 to 1, but the enrollment to reach an unconnected, low-income household, a covered household at 150% or below the federal poverty level is 1 to 1,000. That means repeated outreach. We need to have every channel possible reaching out. And that is collectively what we've got to figure out how we're going to do more frequently, and not stop until we get every last low-income household online. When you poll the households across the state, less than 1% say they don't want to be online. They are not low-income households. They are older adults, all of us are aging, who don't want to be bothered with technology until they're told that is how you stay in your home and can do telehealth remotely, and then they all say sign up. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. McPeak. Do any council members have questions or comments?
Then we're all ready to go, right? Figure out the next steps.
Thank you. I'm not hearing any comments or questions or seeing any online, so we
Oh.
will move ahead.
Mr. Chairman, may I just, a point of privilege, I want to acknowledge my team, which is very, very small, very lean, who does all this work in direct notification. So Patty Bibby runs the call center, Marissa Canchet manages all the connections, there's Charlene Tatis who supports that, and Kyle Ryan, who is here with me today.
Thank you for that. All right, next on our agenda will be an update on the State Digital Equity Plan and Capacity Grant Program implementation from Deputy Director Scott Adams. Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Pleasure to provide an update on the status of the Digital Equity Plan and Capacity Grant implementation. If you could go to the next slide, please. As I'd said at the top, that really a lot of the State Digital Equity Plan and the Capacity Grant are funded by the federal government, and really the last year and a half has been about planning, but now we're shifting into implementation. And the probably the most pressing part of implementing the Digital Equity Plan right now is taking the funds that we're in receipt of from the federal government to implement the plan, and completing the design of our capacity grant and moving forward with the sub-grant program. Some key highlights we just wanted to, or milestones we wanted to remind the council of, is that one thing that's not on here is technically we provided the NTIA with our state digital equity plan at the beginning of last year. And on March 28th, the NTIA let us know that that plan that was developed with input from over 50,000 residents and stakeholders was approved. The very next day, the NTIA released the notice of funding opportunity for the capacity grant to help implement that. We went through a fairly extensive multi-month long period of hearing and merit review that was from like May 29th to October 24th, and then received notification on November 4th that we would receive our grant, which was $70.2 million. The performance period of that grant started on December 1st of 2024. Next slide, please. And so, we've heard about the various investments that have been going on for Broadband for All. There's the significant infrastructure investments. There's the very extensive suite of programs that are administered by the CPUC. There's the work of others like the California Emerging Technology Fund and the many, many partners at different levels throughout the state. The purpose of the Digital Equity Capacity Grant wanted to kind of, clarify for the council and the members of the public is to really fund entities, either statewide, regional, or local, to conduct activities to help implement the Digital Equity Plan statewide. And really to work to address the digital equity barriers, many that we've heard around access or affordability or adoption at the local, regional, and state level. It's also to be used to help develop regional and local ecosystems and increase capacity. And part of that, what's unique about this program is it does allow for a portion of the funds to be used to develop regional and local digital equity plans that align with the state plan. And then beyond that, I think it's no surprise, it will provide digital inclusion funding to trusted messenger organizations and community. We're endeavoring to allocate funding across every county. We'd like to use these funds also to encourage statewide innovation in terms of getting people connected in broadband adoption. I just want to note that a lot of people think of innovation in the sense of technology and automation, but some of this innovation could be like analog innovation, which is like collaborations and partnerships and programs, because a lot of it, you can't necessarily use technology to connect people that aren't connected or who have technological barriers. So wanted to kind of highlight that distinction. Next slide, please. As we said, engagement and collaboration and alignment is so critically important here. There were so many organizations and individuals and residents that contribute to the digital equity plan. We wanted to take great care that we design the subgrant program with input from those who are actually going to be using the funds and doing the work. And so what we wanted to summarize here is kind of the metrics of engagement that have occurred over the last 7 months. We've done 7 digital equity implementation stakeholder briefings. Those are different than the Broadband Council meetings, where we're constrained by Bagley-Keene, and the members of the public can speak, but they can't necessarily engage. And so these are really, we've endeavored to make these bi-directional, to have breaks after we bring up information, and to have really fruitful conversations and back and forth to understand the things that potential recipients of subgrants are asking us to consider. We've done 2 different surveys on program design and subgrant. We've done over 120 market research meetings and listening sessions with potential subgrantees, vendors, et cetera. And we participated in 20 presentations kind of outside our programmatic framework to meet folks where they are and to speak to the opportunity. Next slide, please. So when we were here in October, we were in the middle of the public comment period, or I'm sorry, at the end of the public comment period on the draft guidelines for the subgrant program. So we wanted to close the loop on that with you all and just give you a summary of how that public comment period ended. And so we received 66 public comments from organizations throughout the state. There were actually, we allowed the ability to provide multiple comments on multiple sections of the guidelines. So it was really 192 comments when you break it down by the input that we've received. Public comments were received from organizations representing 49 counties in California, and that's kind of visualized with the map on the left. And then 79% of the commenting organizations expressed interest in applying. So definitely indicating interest and demand out there. Next slide, please. Don't want to get into super detail here, but to let you know the kind of the breakdown of the general themes of the public comment were on program design. So folks were had some really good input on the application structure, on application timelines, given there's a lot of different programs that folks are applying for, covered populations. So how we can direct the funding. Other comments were bucketed into funding and cost. What's the funding allocation that we're thinking about? How would we allow costs that might be different than other grants? And what were cost caps? And then the third bucket is related programs and services, where stakeholders were interested in how we had framed the program design of the grant, like, would we procure, develop, and provide centralized services and to support grantees to do the work, like a digital literacy platform, and also data collection methodology. Another bucket was just asking about the relationship to the digital equity plan and the capacity grant. Really asking for clarification that yes, like we have direct guidance from the federal government to develop a plan, and the funds that we use must be funds that we allocate must be used to achieve the objectives and targets outlined in the plan. And then some really great feedback about how we could learn from their experience and develop a technical assistance program that would ensure maximum subscription and that all dollars are used. These are time-dependent dollars. and support people in doing quality applications. Next slide, please. So this is our tentative timeline. And again, there's a lot of different rows. I think the thing that I would direct your attention to is really, I think row 2 is critically important. Stakeholder engagement is going to really be a consistent, focus throughout the implementation of the digital equity plan and the administration of the capacity grant. The third row, the post-award NTIA state requirements. What's really important is that arrow, December 1st, 2024 was our period of performance begin date. We technically have nine months from that start date to engage in contracts, to receive, to actually launch the grant program and identify who the awards are going to go to. It's a 5-year grant program, but there is a tight timeline to getting the funds out there. And then the last thing that I'd like to kind of point out on this slide is row 4. Really shows we intend to launch the subgrant program this quarter of this year. And the components, there'll be a 60-day request for application period, a 90-day review period, and then a 30-day period, which we intend to and hopefully make all awards. And then I guess I will say lastly, there's a the subgrant technical assistance program is something that's going to be really critical, and we intend to actually start that beginning next month so that we can help folks get ready to do their applications. Okay. Have one more slide here. Could we? Next steps, we would love to remind both the council and the ecosystem, this vast network of partners we've all established over the last couple of years, that our next stakeholder briefing is going to be conducted virtually over Zoom on January 31st between 1 and 2. There's a QR code there at the bottom where folks can, go to the link and register. Again, it's a very open exchange of information and feedback. And then lastly, given again how important it is for us to seek additional sources of funding, we did want to, a reminder to the ecosystem that the Federal Native Entity Digital Equity Capacity Grant is a separate pool of funding specifically for tribes. That is still open. It closes on February 7th. So to tribal entities in California or, entities that work with tribes, we encourage you to take a look at that if you hadn't, and we've provided a QR code on how to get to that application package. So Chair, that concludes my report, but if you would indulge me, I forgot to mention this at the top. I do want to acknowledge the, entire staff of the Office of Broadband and Digital Literacy and our extended group of consultants and folks that are supporting us to do the programmatic work every day. We've got a small but mighty team, and they really put their hearts in into the work that they do. And so just wanted to thank and acknowledge all of them, and also for the flawless execution of these meetings that they do. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Do any council members have any comments or questions? Ms. McPeak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course I do. So thank you very much, Mr. Adams, for the presentation and for the analysis of the public comment. So my question's the following. In looking at the most digitally disadvantaged, and all of us for 2.5 years focused on the 5.8 million households that were eligible for the Affordable Connectivity Program, which had eligibility up to 200% of the federal poverty level. The covered households have eligibility up to only 150%. It turns out that of that 5.8 million households who are eligible, 3/5 were between the 150 and 200% federal poverty level. They are the majority that we were able to enroll in ACP. As I reported earlier, the rest didn't even know about it, and it's harder to reach them. They largely can't afford that $30 a month. Many have just converted over to a $30 a month ISP offer. We're still trying to really understand that, but they can, most of them. At the 150% or below, they cannot really afford $30. They're much more in that range when they are in a focus group of somewhere between $15 and $20 that they say is a value proposition. They'd really welcome paying 10, quite honestly. Okay, having said that, in your thinking about the process and all those beautiful arrows that you presented, and when you're going to call for the applications, how are you now thinking about what you'll expect or require of all the subawardees, the subgrantees, in reaching the 2.9 million who are the most fragile, the most difficult to reach? And by the way, in 2022, NTIA said we had 19.5% of our whole population was covered households, which matches all of our own data internally. Today, they've now moved it up to 19.6. So it's increased by 1/10 of a percentage point. We're going in the wrong direction on income. The gap on income inequality is growing. It underscores the need to focus on the most disadvantaged. How are we going to do that in the capacity grants?
I'm thinking about that. That was a lot. So should you'd like me to answer focusing on the last part is how are we going to focus on? Yeah, thank you. Well, it's pretty clear in the federal guidelines for the capacity grant that what the NTIA is asking us to focus on is covered populations. The first of which is households at or below 150% of the federal poverty line. Meeting the measurable objectives of the digital equity plan that are getting everyone connected, having lasting and meaningful change, and engaging with stakeholders. And so the requirements that we will ask of the grantees will be that the funds that are allocated through the capacity grants, the subgrant program, really be focused on aligning with the strategies, the key activities, and the measurable objectives that we've outlined in the plan. And that really, when you think about it, we're going to have to report as a state up to the NTIA, the progress that we're making every year. And so it's not just going to be qualitative, but quantitative data on the impact that our efforts are making. And we'll talk more about that next Friday at the stakeholder briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Thank you, Ms. McPeak. Next, we'll move on to our public comment. Ms. Nguyen, will you please provide the public comment guidelines and begin with public comment?
Thank you. To ensure everyone who wishes to make public comments has the opportunity to do so, we respectfully request 1 person per entity and 2 minutes per person. The order of public comments will be in-person comments, Zoom and phone comments, and emailed comments submitted prior to the meeting. For in-person comments, please form a line at the podium. For Zoom, please use the raise hand features in the lower toolbar. For phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. There were no comments submitted by email prior to the meeting. We will start with the first person in line at the podium. Chief Deputy Director Jared Johnson, I do not see anyone in line, so we'll move on. Next, we will hear comments from Zoom via hands raised. For call-in, please press *9. I see one hand raised. Carolina Mendez,
Hi, everyone.
please unmute.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Carolina Mendez, and I am the program manager for Oakland Undivided. Given the collaborative nature of the capacity grant, which requires applicants to coordinate across regions, we asked the CDT to please release the capacity grant guidelines before the application window opens and as soon as possible. This will allow enough time for community-based organizations to coordinate and establish well-formed regional partnerships and to review the guidelines to create a cohesive project ideas that will center our community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next the next commenter we have on Zoom, Josh Butler.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank Deputy Director Adams and CDT for the thorough process that they've provided for public comment and participation in the development of the subgrant process. I'm the Senior Policy and Advocacy Manager at Human IT. We work across the nation, so I've had an opportunity to participate in capacity grant opportunities in different states. And in California, we have by far the most thorough and complete opportunity for the public to participate. And so I just want to thank CDT and the Broadband Council for the opportunity to participate, and looking forward to helping close the divide here in California. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Just looking around once more time to see if anyone in the room. I also don't see any online or phone. Chief Deputy Director Johnson, that ends our public comment session.
Thank you. Are there any council members who would like to make additional comments before we close the meeting? Seeing none or hearing none? So I want to thank the council members and presenters for their contributions today, and to the members of the public for your thoughtful comments. I also want to express my gratitude for those working so diligently to move things forward to close the state's digital divide and foster digital equity in California. Your work is valued and is taking critical steps in laying the groundwork to achieve broadband for all. Our next meeting is scheduled for Friday, April 25th, 2025, starting at 9:30 a.m. at Covered California and online. We look forward to seeing everyone then. With that, we will conclude the January 24th, 2025 California Broadband Council meeting. Thank you.